President Trump appears to be hamstrung by the coronavirus. He has admitted to downplaying the dangers of COVID-19 in Woodward's new book.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't want to create a panic. It goes through air, Bob. That's always tougher than the touch. You know, the touch, you don't have to touch things, right? But the air, you just breathe the air, and that's how it's passed. And so that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus.
Moe Vella is a Democratic strategist and a former senior advisor to presidential hopeful Joe Biden, and joins us now from Washington to share some of his insights on this new book. Thanks so much for joining us, Mo. Always good to talk to you. And I guess the first lesson for Donald Trump is Nixon and Bob Woodward should have been a lesson to be careful what you say to Bob Woodward.
Well, if you didn't have questions about Donald Trump's mental acuity or mental stability before he agreed to talk to Bob Woodward, you sure should have it now, right? I mean, I don't know how anybody in their right mind would talk to an investigative reporter, much less admit literally to being complicit and contributory to the death of 190,000 innocent Americans. I mean, in essence, Peter, as horrible and sad as it is, he's got blood on his hands of people's grandparents, parents, children, brothers, sisters. Honestly, I can't even talk about it because it really upsets me. The thought that he knew this, Peter, and that he kept this from our wonderful people here in our United States. All I can say is he's got blood on his hands, and he indirectly or directly participated in the murder of a lot of innocent people.
Well, let's talk a little bit about his argument that he downplayed it so that there wouldn't be so much panic. Is it possible that he was taking action behind the scenes, even though his public messaging might have been one of trying to calm?
Look, there's nothing wrong with somebody trying to calm the public in any situation. As you know, I've had the pleasure and privilege and honor of serving in the White House twice as a senior staffer. Of course, you want to keep people calm, but you never put your concern over the stock market plunging, over the lives of innocent people, Peter. It just isn't done. And to use the excuse of calmity or to keep people calm is absolutely absurd. You tell the truth, you keep people informed, you give people the information they need to prevent, to mitigate, and to protect themselves. But you don't keep information from the public with the excuse that you're trying to keep them calm. Calmness, we'd be much more calm if we knew the truth. And we knew what to do to make it better. That's how you keep people calm. But not this man. He just flat out lied, and the result was people died.
And I guess the challenge with his explanation is that throughout the pandemic, he's been downplaying it and busy trying to get people to go back to work, to go back to school, back to college, as quickly as possible, even against the advice of his most senior health advisors.
Peter, it's incomprehensible, honestly. How could somebody, anybody with any type of intelligence or common sense, not listen to scientists and health experts? He's literally encouraging people. It's like sending cattle to slaughter. It really is. You know that by sending these children into these schools, you're literally saying it's okay if some of them get this. And we know that some kids don't survive it. What type of human being, what type of person would even begin to behave like that? It's embarrassing for our country. It's disgusting. It's hurtful. It's sad. And frankly, I think it might be criminal.
Is the message starting to drop in terms of the president could have done better with COVID-19 and that maybe people did die because he didn't act appropriately? Is it something that's resonating with people? Because this will be something they'll be forced to think about in a few weeks' time.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. I think it's an excellent question. And look, I think that in my opinion, and this is just my humble opinion, all 2 pennies worth of it, Peter, but here's the deal. If you look at the polling from the time the pandemic started to today, there's been a consistent trend. I'm not a big poll supporter because, as I've mentioned to you before, I don't trust them very much. But what I do look for are patterns and trends, and that's what we should be looking for. And the pattern and the trend since the pandemic started to today has been that Joe Biden has been very heavily and strongly and comfortably in the lead. And to me, that tells me there probably is no doubt that there is a correlation between the message that there is a direct connection between Donald Trump's ineptitude, his lack of doing anything about the pandemic, calling it a hoax, saying it was going to miraculously go away, that he would pray it away. All of these things he said, there's a direct connection between that and the Biden lead that has consistently existed in the polls. I do believe the message is resonating. It has been resonating. And I think Bob Woodward's tapes are only going to make it worse for the president. Last week, it was about calling our military and our veterans suckers and losers. This week, it's knowing that he had information that actually resulted in the death of my fellow Americans. I don't know how anybody could vote for this man at this point. I just don't know.
Could he shock and surprise, though, and get voted in?
Listen, there's one thing we know about Donald Trump. He cheats, he lies, he's a fraud, he's a con man, and he will do whatever he can to retain power. So we have to be on the highest alert, because he will try to cheat and he will try to do everything he can to manipulate the system, to alter the system, to fraudulently impact the system, to use his friends in Russia, and in North Korea to try to impact our electoral process. So we have to be on high alert, Peter. So the answer is yes, there is a way for him to shock the system, but it will be through cheating and it will be through his incredibly horrible and despicable behavior. So we just have to fight because our democracy depends on it, my brother. Our democracy depends on this election.
So Bob Woodward's book's based largely on 18 interviews that he had with Donald Trump over some time. There are other revelations that have come through, and one that really sort of concerns me is this fear about war with North Korea, because he really pushed that to the edge, didn't he?
Fear is this man's best friend. Think about it. Everything he does, it's either fearing somebody of a different color of skin, fearing somebody because they come from a country south of the Rio Grande River, fear because somebody has an accent, fear because somebody loves somebody of the same gender, fear because it's North Korea, fear because, see what I'm saying? It's all about fear. It's the only modus operandi that this man knows is to instill, promote, and advocate fear. And it works real well for his cult followers. They fall just prey to this peddling of fear. But I have to believe, Peter, much like the beautiful people of South Africa, that the majority of our nation is not going to fall for it. You know, we have a saying here in the United States: fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I have to believe that the majority of Americans are not going to be fooled again. And they're going to see right through this fear-mongering. That's all the man knows how to do. Hatred, fear, racism, And so to our brothers and sisters in South Africa, Peter, I ask them to please send us good energy, say some prayers for us, do whatever you can to think positive for us, that we can actually save our country and restore our democracy in November.
I think a lot of South Africans are with you, because often what happens in America affects the entire world. It also, in this book, is senior officials, former officials, many of them, alarmed by President Trump's impulsiveness and a lack of focus. One even said that he has no moral compass.
I don't know that, to be really blunt, I don't think we needed to read Bob Woodward's book, right? Or hear quotes from his staff, Trump's staff, to know that this man has no moral compass. From the day he announced his presidency and called my fellow Latinos, right? I'm Hispanic American. My ancestors are from Mexico. And he referred to my ancestors as criminals and rapists. That was the day he announced his presidency, his run for the presidency. From that day, every day, probably at least once, he has demonstrated to us and to the world that he has no moral compass. I don't need to read Bob Woodward's book to know that, but it's, you know, it's clearly affirming when you hear it from his senior staff that that is in fact the case. And again, I don't know that I've ever, frankly, in my lifetime, I know for a fact I've never seen or heard a more evil person than Donald Trump. And I mean that.
And it seems that as things get a bit tight for him, he's starting to pick a strategy, and one of them seems to be going as far right as he can and agitating race, because he knows that there is a constituency.
Yes, and unfortunately, my brothers and sisters in South Africa know this game too well, right? And they understand, they see that, they know exactly what he's doing. We know exactly what he's doing here in the United States, those of us who believe in equality and inclusion and the spirit of love that you in South Africa believe. But you've seen this before, and now, unfortunately, we're having to live it too, where people are using race to divide, rather than to build and celebrate on everything we have in common as the global human family. The man is evil. And yes, he is dividing us by race, and he wants people to fear somebody who doesn't look like them. He wants us to fear people who don't love like we do. He wants us to fear people who don't worship and believe the way we do. And this is the beginning, if not already, several steps down the road of fascism and authoritarianism. And frankly, I never dreamed I'd have to say that in my lifetime. And I hope and I believe in November we will stop it, and we will restore the democracy that at one time was respected around the world. We will be back. I promise. We'll be back.
So Joe Biden seems to be pointing out some of these flaws of Donald Trump. And there's always a danger, of course, isn't there, where you play the man and not the ball, where you don't focus on what you're going to do and you focus on the other person. And some say that Hillary Clinton perhaps did too much of that. Is there a danger that Biden might be over-trumping some of his speech?
You know, the concern is meritorious, and it is a mistake some people make. It's not a mistake Joe Biden is making. Just look at today, or was it yesterday? I'm getting confused in the quarantine. I get a little confused which day is which. Yeah. But he was in Michigan, I think it was today, announcing his jobs plan. So I think he's done an incredible job, honestly, of balancing what you just described, which is you got to demonstrate a contrast between your character, your values, and the character or lack thereof, in this case, of Donald Trump, the lack of character and values that he doesn't possess. But he also, as you can see today in Michigan, Vice President Biden was pointing out how he's going to create jobs in his Made in the USA program, right? And that right there is telling you what he plans to do for our nation in his term as president. So I think he's handling it beautifully. The balance is perfect so far, and I hope he continues that perfect balance heading to all the way to the 3rd of November.
How has Kamala Harris helped the cause? I know fundraising has gone through the roof as soon as she joined the ticket. Has that been a big push?
Oh, I think she's been nothing but an absolute positive and an asset, incredible enhancement to the ticket. She's an amazing woman. She's fierce, she's smart, she's strategic. She's going to actually mop the floor with Mike Pence in the debate. All of us can't wait for that debate. As a former federal prosecutor, he has no chance. And she's just been nothing but absolute fantastic, Peter. And I think that it's going to be historic when we win on November 3rd. And I just think it sends a message to not only those of us in minority and ethnic communities here in the U.S., but around the world. It sends an incredible message to little girls and women all over the world, right? That they belong at every table, at every policy discussion, at every decision that's going to be made. Every little girl and every woman belongs there for the rest of eternity. And so I'm excited about having her on the ticket, as you can tell, and I think she's been an amazing addition.
All right, Moe Vella, always great talking to you. Thanks so much indeed for your insights, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again very soon.
I look forward to it, and to the people of South Africa, as always, I send you a big hug. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Moe Vella there giving us an update from the United States, giving his thoughts about Donald Trump. Many people share that, but of course, he's also got his fan base. There's a lot of Republicans who are going to vote for him no matter what.